Welcome back to Hoffman Tactical. So today we are going to be discussing my 3D printing setup. Okay, so currently I am running three Prusa i3 MK3 printers. The latest one is the Plus edition, which has some improvements on it, but they're pretty much all the same from Prusa Research. So that's what we're running printer-wise. And then as far as the plastic mounting goes, you can see I've got the plastic in the spools. I run the primary source of my plastic is from Bush Plastic, and I get their 3 kilogram rolls of filament. So all of my ABS, PETG, polycarbonate, right now that I print with is all on 3 kilogram rolls. And I also do print some smaller 1 kilogram rolls for supplemental use and more specialty filaments. So I have my 3 kilogram rolls in these pods, as you can see, and these are actually just cupcake holders or cake holders, which I got at Walmart actually. So they work really well. They fit the 3 kilogram rolls perfectly. If you were just going to use 1 kilogram rolls, you could probably get a smaller pod, a more easy to find container. But I get those on arms. We've got dowels. I've got bushings. The 3 kilogram rolls are running on bushings so they run smoothly. And then we are feeding the filament into the printer. And if you look carefully, you'll notice I'm feeding the filament from the front. It's coming. The rolls are not sitting behind the printer, but the rolls are sitting in front of the printer. And the filament is coming off the edge of the roll, and then it's coming down and into the print head at an angle from the front. And the purpose of that is the force that the filament being of the print head, the extruder is pulling the filament in, and that force on the tension of the filament is pulling that, is going to try to pull that print head up. And if you have that filament pointing backwards towards the back of the machine or even vertically, it's going to tend to twist the print head and cause lines and other print defects on your print. So I pull it from the front at that angle, and what that angle does is it's basically pulling straight from the line of that force is collinear with the, not collinear, but it's coinciding with the center of rotation of the print head, if that makes any sense. So the print head wants to rotate around a certain axis, which is between the two smooth rods for the x-axis, and that filament is pulling out at that angle. What that does is that extra force does move the print head by a tiny amount, but it doesn't twist it, and the error is so tiny it's not noticed in your print settings at all. So that's something really important, especially when running big rolls of plastic, which actually do have a bit of friction and mass. So there's a bit of force on that filament as it pulls into the print head. So that is the why that has that angle to the filament feeding into the extruder. Now I can probably use some improvements on the part with the way I take the filament out of the pod. Right now I've just drilled an angled hole through it, so it's not perfectly sealed or anything. I think having a little angled bulkhead fitting with a small PTFE tube coming down a couple inches will help seal it up and prevent any issues. The reason I'm not running a tube all the way to the extruder is because that adds a lot of trouble if you want to change filaments or even loading filaments and all that. It becomes a lot more cumbersome, and I do a lot of filament changes when printing ABS, for example, because I'll use PETG for my first layer to prevent warping. So that's why I'm not doing that. That's why I have open air filaments going down to the print head. Now you can see we have this hood. I have this piece of plywood is actually what it is above the printers, suspended above the printers. What that's for is I'm going to be putting a curtain, a weighted vinyl curtain around the printers, so I can still move it aside and work on them or access prints, but that'll contain all the fumes, and I'll have a small, very small fan that'll be exhausting outside that'll maintain a tiny bit of negative pressure in there so we won't get any fumes into the room, which is a problem we have right now. So I have one machine running a 0.8mm nozzle. That's what I print all of my patch squeegee stacks for our Elite Series solvent trap. That's pretty much all it does. And I also use it for any custom parts I want that are larger and not particularly dimensionally accurate, where I don't need exacting surface finish. I'll use like the tensile tester, which you'll be seeing coming up into a future video. All the parts on that were printed with a 0.8mm nozzle. Both other machines have the factory 0.4mm nozzles on them, and I'll probably upgrade one of them at some point to a Ruby nozzle, 0.4mm nozzle, so that I can print with abrasive filaments without having any compromises. Okay, so this gives you guys a bit of an idea of what my print setup looks like, what kind of printers I'm running, because a lot of people ask that. What kind of printers do I use? They're just the Prusas, and how I feed my filament, how I contain my filament. I use those pods, which helps keep them dry. I'm going to be adding little baskets in there for a piece of desiccant. That'll help keep the filament dry. Right now, this definitely helps quite a lot, especially with ABS, and I'm sure with nylon, even though I haven't printed that yet, but we will be. We're not compatible with it now that we have our pods on there. So if you're looking at setting up like a professional type print setup that's easy to use and isn't like fragile or anything, this is a great way to do it. Those pods I'm using right here, as I said, they're just cake holders. You can pick them up at Walmart, I assume, in your area, and they work really good for the application. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys again later.